Hi boys and girls, good morning or good afternoon, maybe good evening if you're doing this video in the evening. So today we're going to talk about filling in your outline, which looks like this. So you need to have this outline with you. Now if you need to do on lined paper, that's fine. It's on Renweb if you want to copy or print out another one. You need some lined paper because we're going to take notes on this, and my notes are going to fill this whole thing up. And that's not what this is for. This is for your actual information that you're putting down about your person. I would suggest a highlighter today and a pencil. I have two. And you also want your sources. And you're going to want to keep all of this stuff together. So just as a reminder, I told you in my last video, you need to number your sources. Doesn't matter which number goes on which one, but you need to have 1, 2, 3. If you have a fourth one, then you would label that number 4 if you had a book. But again, just so we know where you're getting your information from. Because, hey, you might make a mistake and you might write down the wrong word, you might misspell it, you might just get it wrong, you might get a date wrong. And so I might catch it, you might catch it, but then you think, man, where did I get that information from? Oh, source number 1. Oh, it's early life, right? Because I told you guys to label on the side if it's early life or later life. So you're going to be able to find it much faster than you would if you didn't label it. So label your sources. Okay, I may even be checking for that when you send me in copies of your information. So remember, you need to highlight your information that you find. So for me, this is her early life over here. So you can just put an E. You can write the whole word out, it's up to you. Now you're gonna have to decide where about the middle part of your person's life begins. Again, this person was 69 when she died, so I may break it up about her 30s. She goes to school to be a doctor, so I may wait till after she finishes medical school and then start there for her middle life, okay? And if you're not sure, you can put early middle, okay? And then you can decide where it's gonna go. All right, so let's get started. So I'm going to be referring to this, but I'm going to be writing notes here. Please have them together. Now, you can take notes on here. However, it's going to get garbled. And when you send this in to me, a picture of your handwriting, I only want to see your information. So if you want to write notes on this and then print out another one from Renweb and then do your work on there, that's fine. It's up to you. But make sure that when you do turn this in with your information that I can read it. So let me take a step back. On Wednesday, you need to send in highlighted portions of your research so I know that you're working on it. It can be a picture just like this, or you can, like I showed you in the other video, copy paste into a Word document, use the highlighter tool in the on the toolbar in Microsoft Word. Save it as a document like you would in computer class and then just send that to me, okay? But I also need your sources by Wednesday too. And all I need from that, and I can show you on the bottom, let's see if I can bring it up, right here would be the source. You just copy paste the link. That way I know you're not making it up. If I were to type that whole thing in, I would go and I would find this page. Okay, not that I think that you are lying to me, but when you do research papers in the upper grades and in college, you have to be able to correctly cite your sources, tell your professors where you're getting your work from. You just have to, otherwise it's plagiarism, okay? And that way I can check to see that it's a reputable site. I'm not an expert, but I might be able to catch something that maybe you might not be able to, okay? So I'm gonna push those aside for a second. Put them over here. So your introduction starts with your background or your blue sentences. Now blue refers to the step up to writing colors. It's not too important, but the background is just that. It's background information on either the topic at hand, being your person's life, or the problem that was prevalent in the world and the solution they came up for. You want to get your audience, which is me, or anybody else reading your paper, to be excited about what they're reading, okay? Sorry, I'm just marking the table so I know where I can move my paper and not move my paper so you can still see it. Don't worry, I'll erase it. All right. So on the top, please write outline notes. If I pause, it's because I'm getting up to make sure I can see it in the iPad, otherwise it's pointless. So your introduction, and this is your first paragraph. Now, this is the sign for paragraph, okay? And actually, I'm going to erase that for a second. I want to see how it would come out. Okay. Actually, that's the sign for paragraph. And that's your first one. Okay, this is paragraph, the first one. Okay. And it's your introduction. I would like 2 background sentences. Okay, so I'm going to put a 2 for background. And honestly, if you're explaining the problem in the world or the need for whatever it is, whatever contribution your person made to society, 1 isn't enough. 2, maybe 3 might be necessary, okay? So this is what you could put in there because everyone's different. Last year we were doing a scientist, so I could kind of generally make this very similar for everybody, but because some of you guys are doing presidents, some of you guys are doing athletes, and some of you are doing doctors and writers, it's different. So I'm going to give you some things that you can look for. So explain the need for what they contributed, to society, or because last year was a scientist, they might just have contributed something to their field of expertise, be that athletics or music or art. So I'm going to use that word, their field. So that's what that means, okay? But you could also give some facts or statistics about the problem. I'm making sure I'm spelling everything right because I can't speak and spell at the same time sometimes. So let me go backwards to this. Explain the need for what they contribute to society. So several of you are doing James Naismith. He was an inventor of basketball, And if I remember correctly from the students that did it last year, there was a need at this college that he invented, the one where he worked in, for some kind of sport for the boys to do there. They were bored. I forget if it was after school or he was the PE teacher, but there was a need for it. And he talks about that like in his own autobiography. So you could start about that. You can start talking about that. You could do facts or statistics. Did you know, baseball was invented in, and I forget the year, by James Naismith, and you may not want to name your person right away if you're going to go that route. You may say by a 20-year-old teacher, and I apologize, I forget where he was from, but you could go into that. You might even explain the success or prevalence of their contribution. And what I mean by that is, let's go back to James Naismith. He invented basketball. How incredibly popular is basketball? I mean, more so in the United States, obviously, but it is a huge multi-billion-dollar sport. It's hard right now because we don't have sports, and they had to miss the big basketball games of the springtime that usually happen. But you can talk about how it's very popular in America. You can look, so you're even researching this, you're looking up how many millions of people watch it, what do the basketball players make, who are some more popular ones, and all that started because you're getting me into, oh yeah, basketball is really cool. Yeah, I like basketball. Oh yeah, I know this. You're getting the reader excited, and then they're going to read about the inventor of it. Okay, just makes it more exciting, and it gets your reader invested or more involved. The person that I'm researching with you guys is Jean McNamara. And again, she's the one that discovered that there were more than one strain of the polio virus, and that led to the vaccine in 1955. And the statistics on that, as soon as they introduced the vaccine, meaning, they got the shot ahead of time when they were young children, it went from something like 55,000 cases in the United States. And then just like 3 years later, after people getting that vaccine, there was only maybe 2,000. It was huge. Just imagine that many less people, not just not sick, but they weren't crippled for the rest of their lives, because that was a real result of polio. So you may want to explain the success or the prevalence. I mean, that vaccine was so successful, we don't even have it in the United States anymore. I have one aunt that has the vaccine marks on her arm, because it's a really distinctive mark when they got the polio vaccine, and so she's the only one that I know that has it, because it's just eradicated in our country. There's about 4 other countries that it's still prevalent in, or it's still an issue, but that's how successful her contribution to the world was. Now, she didn't come up with the vaccine, but she helped with the research, which is important. Usually it's many minds come together to make something that is a huge success for the world. Okay. So again, you need to know your person. You need to have read your research several times. You need to have a good feeling and idea of what they've done. I recommend watching some documentaries so you can get an idea and really sympathize. I mean, it's interesting that I chose Jean McNamara. I didn't do it because of coronavirus or anything, but like I said, it was on the Google Doodle for the day. But when I was reading about the polio vaccine or epidemic, is it very similar to the coronavirus? People were quarantined, their homes were marked, very similar to the 1925 epidemic in Alaska that we read about, where they marked the houses, stay away, quarantine, very similar. And it was in New York, which you guys know they're having a bigger issue than we are, because there's more people in a smaller area than there are in California. So I'm just feeling for them and relating to them a little bit. I mean, polio can be very devastating and definitely can be fatal. Okay, people aren't walking away crippled from having coronavirus. So those are some great ways to start the background. Or you can even do a quote that clearly defines in the very beginning of your paper what an amazing contribution to society your person made. Okay, and generally that would be from somebody else in their field. Like if Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant had a quote about James Naismith about how he's so appreciative of the work that he did and the game that he invented. It changed his life and the lives in Kobe Bryant's case of young children, because he had a charity to help them after school program. So quotes are great. I have, facts. Do I have that? Facts or statistics. And this you may need to research, which is great because we're doing a research paper. Okay? And you guys are so lucky. As a kid, I would have had to have gone back to the library, gotten a new encyclopedia, looked up statistics. But again, they would be old because they would have been from the data print of that book, which could have been 10, 20 years ahead of time. So you guys are so lucky. All you have to do is Google it. And I'm lucky too, because that's what I did for this and to learn a little bit more about polio. Okay, and you can even do a did you know? Did you know that every school in America has a basketball team? Or did you know that polio has been eradicated from the United States? Something to really get your reader interested. And you can even start with something sad or tear-jerking, because that gets your reader invested into your paper. It's like, wow, I didn't know that. Oh man, that's so sad. Or I didn't know polio was eradicated. That's amazing. I want to know more. Okay, so that's kind of what you want to do. You want to get your reader to want to read the rest of your paper, not because they have to, but because you made it interesting here. Okay? Let's see, do I have any more notes for that? Okay, so that's your background. And again, 2 sentences. Okay, so that might take a little bit of work. So now let's get into your, and that's just the first 2 sentences of your introduction. We're still in your introduction. So now we're going into the topic sentence. Okay, so we did that background. Now we're going to talk about your topic sentence. So this is where you give the name of the person and what they're known for, or pretty much why you chose them, right? Okay, so I have a couple of examples. Now, any sentence that I give you, you do not have to use that exact format. In fact, I suggest you don't. Start making it your own. You know, put the predicate part in front of the subject, okay? Or add a prepositional phrase in front of it. Okay, so I want you to make sure that you're rearranging and not just copying what I'm doing. So I'm going to go with Jean McNamara because I've been researching her. And there's a couple different examples. So I am not going to say, I am researching Jean McNamara and she is known for. I'm not going to do that because it's boring. Just realized I made a mistake here. Sorry about that. And I was actually thinking to myself as I was writing that part, don't make a mistake. The name of the person and what they're known for. Okay, so here's an example. You don't have to write this example down, although I do suggest it so you have some kind of formula, okay? Okay, so Jean McNamara, so I'm just going to start with her name. And I'm going to use the word contribution. Now, I could change that and I could say her work in the field of polio, or just her work, or her tireless work. So I'm going to underline this because that's a word that you can change, or you can make that into a phrase. That's what I mean by flipping things around and making it your own. So Jean McNamara's contributions during the polio epidemic. And I'm going to add some information here because it makes you sound more authoritative. It makes you sound like an expert in your field. During 1937 to 1938, and it gives your reader a reference point. Okay, I mean, again, polio is eradicated in the United States. I've heard of it. I've learned about it a little bit, but without researching it, I wouldn't have been able to tell you the years. So that gives me a reference point. For me, that's the decade before my parents were born. Or my dad was born, and then 2 decades before my mom was born. So that lets me know, oh, okay, my grandparents were alive. This might have affected them. Okay. So Jean McNamara's contributions to the polio epidemic during 1937 to 1938 led to the discovery that there was more than one strain of the virus. Now, that's not her only contribution that she's known for. If you guys remember, she also helped people with the rehabilitation afterwards. The splints that are so iconic on people that have polio was something that she really researched and really worked on for the people of Australia. Let's see, so let's just go. And now, for somebody like James Naismith, he's the inventor of basketball. I think that's it. I don't think that he wasn't responsible for making it into big basketball leagues that we see today. Obviously people took it and ran with it after that, but that's what he's known for. Some of your people may be known, some people are doing Kobe Bryant. So obviously he was a famous basketball player, an excellent athlete, but he also started charities, after-school charities, to help kids have sporting programs in their school. Because without his contributions and getting other people to contribute, that just wouldn't be possible. And sports are so important. So for him, there'd be 2. For some of your people, it might just be 1. But for her, it's definitely 2. Everything that I read about her is both of these things. And let's see, so her contributions during that, I want to make sure I'm using the right verb tenses. led to the discovery and aided those rehabilitating from the virus. Now, something I want you to be aware of, I used a virus in here, didn't I? You definitely don't want to have the same word twice. Oh man, look how close they are too. So I'd probably cross that out. Here's my proofreading marks, and I would say aided those rehabilitating from the, let's see, effects of polio, we'll say maybe. And I can go back and work on that a little bit. Okay, because you don't want to use that. Like you were talking about James Naismith, you may not want to use this word basketball twice in the same sentence. Okay, so that's my topic sentence. And again, that's only going to be one sentence, but that lets your reader know why you're writing your paper. That's what your person is known for. Okay, I'm going to stop for a second and do some shout outs. I wanted to do it yesterday, I did it to the Tigers, and so today it's to the Cougars. Can I do a shout out to Yadiel? Thank you for all your work. Nathan V, you've been working hard, miss you. Belle, it was nice to see you on Zoom this morning. And Caitlin, you've been working so hard. So, hey guys, love you, and I miss you guys so much. I miss our after recess class. It's a nice class. You guys are awesome. But all my classes are awesome. You guys all have a different fun element of the day. Tiger for the end of the day, so we kind of get to, spend some time together in the afternoon. But Jaguars, I get to see you first thing in the morning, which I kind of like that. So every class has its benefits. All right, so let's keep going. The last thing you guys have is the projected plan. Okay, so I'm going to put some stars here, or some boxes. Your introduction has 3 parts, and that's probably too high for you guys to see. There you go. The introduction has 3 parts. It has the background, it has your topic sentence, and it has a projected plan, okay? And the projected plan is where you say, in much different words, this report will tell you about the early life, the middle life, the later life, and accomplishments of so-and-so. But you're not going to use those words because you're 6th graders, okay? So I have several examples, but again, it's like, to use an idiom, the world is your oyster. You can take it and make it yours. And you have to make it yours because I don't know the person that you're researching. I will after I read about him, but I had to read lots about Jean McNamara to get her sentence correct or interesting, more advanced. Okay, so I'm going to start out with this report, and you can put paper, you can put essay, you can put research paper, so that's one that you can change, right? But again, this can come also at the end of the sentence, so that whole thing can be changed. You don't have to be typical and start with this report, but you can. All right, and whatever you write here on your plan, you can completely change on your rough draft. So this is a fluid, ever-changing process. I had a writing teacher in college that said, you're never done writing, ever. You can always change it, you can always improve it. And that kind of makes me dizzy in the head. It's like, oh, but I just want to be done. But just know, you can always make it better. All right, enough of that. I have so many notes here, it's hard to read. So this report I'm going to give you a bunch of verbs here, and you pick 1 or 2. Okay, so this report can explain, it can detail, it can show, it can tell, it can explain, it can present, identify, and any other ones that you want to come up with would be fine. Okay, so it's going to do one of those things, one of those action verbs. Do I have explore on there? I liked that one. Don't see that one very often. Okay. So it's going to explore the events. I'm sorry if it's sloppy. I want to write quickly because this video is getting kind of long already. The events that occurred. Now again, occurred, you could say took place, right? You don't have to use that. And you can use your thesaurus, word web, and come up with another word for that, okay? Don't copy mine exactly. Explore the events that occurred in. Now, if you're going to refer to your person, don't use their first name. Use their first and last or their last name. That's the general way a biographer would refer to their subject. So that occurred in McNamara's. Now, do not put the words early life, comma, middle life, comma, later life. We're going to put in some synonyms there. For example, early life, what are some other ways that we can say that? Well, a more grown-up way would be to say their formative years, because that's when their basis of life is formed. The first 5 years of a child's life, they're cementing the connections of neurons in their mind of how they're being taken care of, what they're learning, schedules, structured life. So those are their formative years. You guys are in your formative years right now in elementary school. So you could say her formative years. But what else is that? Your childhood. That would be a great. Or you could say early years. Don't put early life. That's just for you to know what information you're finding. But you're not going to use those exact words. So what did I choose? The events that occurred in McNamara's childhood. Well, for her, because she's a doctor, and she started with school and just ran with it, I'm going to say formative years. Okay. Let's see. You could say childhood years. That would be fine too. So again, this one, there's options there. Early years, formative years for childhood. So we'll explore the events that occurred in McNamara's formative years, comma. Now, you need to have a sense of what happened in each chunk of your person's life. And if you don't know that yet, be researching. For her, school was very important to her. She even got a scholarship to go to the school before she went to college. She earned awards. And she was even a medical officer right away in college. So I'm going to use that to describe her middle years or her middle life. Now for you guys, you could say the events that occurred in so-and-so's formative years, comma, their adolescence. Okay, so if you're going to talk about their teenage years being the middle life, then you could say that, or you could say college years. So there's lots of different ways to say that middle part of life. Making sure my video is still recording. Okay. So McNamara's formative years, comma, her training. Oops, let's see. I'm going to say her early education and training as a doctor. I was going to say medical field, but she wanted to be a doctor. Okay, and her life after her work. Because her middle life, after she was trained as a doctor, the polio epidemic happened. And so she immediately started working in that field and looking for ways to help people. So that's what her middle life is. So if that's her middle life, then the years following that would be a good description of her later life. And her life, and I could say years even, after her work towards finding a vaccine, for polio, okay, including her accomplishments, because that can be a separate paragraph for you guys if your person earned many awards, or it can be included in their later life. It depends, especially if you're choosing somebody from like the 1600s, 1700s. There just may not be a whole lot of information about them, and or awards that they were given because it just wasn't quite a thing, including her accomplishments. Okay, wow. So if I were to put that all together in a paragraph, which I will, then I'm going to show you in the next video because I'm going to stop this one. It's super long. But seriously, this is the hardest part of the research paper. I get so many questions on this part. So if I were to skip lines, which I do hope you do when you do your rough draft, I could fill this paper. And maybe I'll show that to you. Maybe I'll write it out and type it. So again, your introduction paragraph, this very first paragraph has 3 parts. It has the background, it has your topic sentence, and your plan. Okay, minimum, we said 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 sentences minimum. This one could easily be 3, and these are going to be advanced, complex, compound sentences. Okay, whew, it's a lot of work. So I just suggest that you guys read a lot about your people, become experts, and make me excited to read about their life. All right, so in the next video, I'm going to go over how to do these sentences. This is the next hardest thing for my students. All right, I'll see you guys soon.